The Green Bay Packers play Monday night against the LA Rams, trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. So how did the weekend action affect those chances? We dive into all of it on today's show.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. A lot happened over the weekend as the Packers get set to take on the LA Rams. It may be hard to remember Thursday with as many crazy things that have happened in the NFL world since then, but Thursday, something really important happened for the Green Bay Packers. The San Francisco 49ers won. That means the Seahawks have 7 losses. Why is that important? Well, because if the Seahawks lose one more game, the Packers are in position to get that last wild card. A 3-way tie with the Packers, Lions, and Seahawks at 9-8 means that Green Bay would get in. They have the Chiefs coming up. And so that would be the most obvious place. This could happen all next week. Now the Packers could lose to the Dolphins. The Packers could lose tonight to the Rams. But that was good for Green Bay's chances. There were 3 teams Green Bay was rooting for. The 49ers, the Commanders, and they got those 2. And then obviously they have to win. So that's an important piece. They got one of those. And then, so here's the interesting thing about Commanders Giants. Yes, it was the case that technically the Packers were cheering for the Commanders. And if you want to add a team like the Colts, yes, they were cheering for the Colts, and they were cheering for the Jets to beat the Lions. That did not happen, and that also does complicate things for the Packers a little, not a lot. I think people are overstating this a little because, well, let's back burner that for a second. Let's start with what I just mentioned, this Giants-Washington game. So Washington loses. They're now 7-6-1. So here's what the Packers need moving forward. They need to win out, and they need the Seahawks to lose one game. Doesn't matter what game. One game. And one of those NFC East teams to go 8-1. It's possible that both of those NFC East teams can still get in. So that complicates things for Green Bay. They need Washington to now lose 2 more games. Now they can do that. They still have Cleveland with Deshaun Watson back. They have, they really have 3 losable games because they play the 49ers on Christmas Eve. Then they're home for Cleveland and home for Dallas. Now that Dallas game might mean nothing. So if you really want to get in the weeds with everything that could potentially happen, this Cowboys game really hurts Green Bay because they go to 4 losses. If they had been just at 3 and they beat the Eagles, now all of a sudden the Eagles have to keep playing. The Cowboys have to keep playing until the very last week because the division could potentially be in play. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case now. All Philly has to do is win one more game and the division is theirs. So this is a situation now where it is more complicated with these tiebreakers, because now Washington and New York, they both have these division games at the end of their schedules, and they're playing teams that might have nothing to play for. So the Commanders, you're really hoping for losses the next 2 weeks. San Francisco, big 49ers fans this upcoming week. And then, as gross as it might be, big Browns fans coming up in 2 weeks. Now, of course, the Packers have to keep winning. All this is predicated on the idea that you're going to keep winning these games. Now, the Lions part of this. If you could get the Lions to that next loss, if you have them at 8 losses, then all you have to do is beat the Seahawks head-to-head, and the Packers would have the tiebreak over Seattle. And you'd be in good position to do that. Now, the 3-way tiebreaks, that gets much more complicated. And it probably ends up going, if the Seahawks lose to the Chiefs and everyone gets to 9-8, the reason it gets complicated is you probably end up having to go to strength of victory record. Now, in order for that to even matter, the team that would probably have to lose a bunch of games is Washington, and that would mean the strength of victory tiebreak for everything that has to happen for the Packers to even be in position to get in. It would mean that they win the strength of victory tiebreak. To even get to that point, to even get to 9-8 with a chance to get in, it would mean that the Commanders go 8-1 and the Packers get in. So, to recap, regardless of the strength of, these strength of victory tiebreaks, in order for the Packers to be in a position to make the playoffs at 9-8, it would require Washington to lose these games, or the Giants to lose these games, and the Seahawks to lose to get to at least 9-8, right? Well, that is sufficient to keep Green Bay ahead in strength of victory. So the strength of victory tiebreak is essentially a moot point if these other conditions are met. Now, if this feels like a stats course, I get it. I'm sorry. This is sort of what I just wanted to give us a little something as we look forward to this game tonight. So, and you could listen to this episode tomorrow, even if you didn't want to. All of the information is going to be relevant as long as the Packers win. If the Packers lose, basically over. So you can't lose. And if you lose to the Rams, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs anyway. That's just the reality. So the Packers are not eliminated. They have to win out. That is the deal. And it's still going to require some help. Is it doable? Yes, it is. It is. Again, I've been saying this for a couple weeks now. The thing that seems least likely is that the Packers win out because the Dolphins, they looked really good on Saturday night against Buffalo, in a game that a lot of people were not giving them a chance to win because of the adverse conditions and all that. This is a really good Dolphins team that can beat you in a lot of different ways. And I think they're going to be a really tough matchup for the Packers. Now, if you're going to go and be a playoff team, these are the kind of games you have to win. You have to beat the teams you should beat, teams like the Rams, and then you have to go beat the Dolphins to keep your hopes alive. And then you're playing a Viking team that's essentially playing for nothing, because the difference between the 2 and the 3 seed is whatever. And you're not gonna fall to the 4 seed in all likelihood. So it doesn't really matter. You're not gonna play the Cowboys in round 1. So then it's the difference between the 7 seed and the 6 seed. And you're not gonna know at that point anyway. So it's really just trying to get things ironed out for them. No one should be afraid of that Vikings team. Now, it would be very much in keeping with this season for the Packers to get everything going the right way, for it all to come down to week 18 against the Lions, win and in, and you lose. That's just kind of how the season has been. Not saying that's how I think it's going to go or how I want it to go clearly, but that would be sort of a fitting coda on this season that has not gone the way that they thought. Now, it also could be the case that the Lions go into this last game with a chance to win and get in. And I didn't check all of the different permutations. I don't think there's a world, because of the way this looks, unless the Giants lose out, that the Packers and Lions can both get in at 9-8. Because if all three teams go 9-8 with the Seahawks would get in over the Lions. I believe that's the way the tiebreaker is. Not the point. If the Packers get to 9-8 and can get in, they will. With the Commanders and all that stuff. So it's all in front of them. I want to talk about one more thing in context of all of this before we get to the game tonight. I promise to keep it short, and we'll get to the Rams. Remember, we're going to have a live YouTube show coming up later tonight. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Therapy online. BetterHelp wants you to be the best version of you. And that can mean any number of things, depending on where you are in your life, depending on the needs that you have, depending on the struggles that you have, depending on your family history, depending on your situation with drugs and alcohol. There are endless reasons why you might need a little help staying on track. Well, BetterHelp can help you do it. They can help you do it, whether you have to work through personal trauma or just find ways to be a little bit more motivated, to be a little bit more compassionate, to be a little bit more patient. Online therapy, BetterHelp, they can help you. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the best access to the qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. They can use simple things like screening questions to make sure that they are maximizing the number of people that come in front of you that go, yes, this is the right kind of person for my job. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedIn Jobs at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. So one thing I want to bring up here quickly is for the people, and I am one of these people who think the best thing for the Packers is to play out the string on the playoffs. Try until it's done. And then see what you have with some of these other guys and Jordan Love and all that stuff. And you want to see Jordan Love. The worst case scenario for the Packers is the scenario that I described earlier, and that is everything goes right until that Week 18 game, and you either lose or the wrong team wins. So like the Commanders win, and that's what gets them in. And so you played it out to the very last game. You don't get in the playoffs. You hurt your draft standing, which I don't really care about. I don't really care about it because the difference between being the 16th team and getting in versus being the 15th team and staying out, unless you win the Super Bowl, right, is minuscule. You'd rather get in, get the experience, even in a loss. Guys like Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Zach Tom, if he's still playing, Kingsley Enagbare, Rudy Ford. Let's see these guys in these big spots. That's hugely valuable for your team. I'm not worried about the draft thing, but it would be the case that you didn't make the playoffs, you didn't see Jordan Love, and you have the worst possible draft slot you could have had because you won enough games to get to the very end, to get to the finish line, but not get the help you quite need. That would be a bad scenario for the Packers. Now, do you need to change the way you approach anything to get there? No, I don't think you do. Because you can't help it. The only thing you can do is just lose. And you don't want to lose. So you have to keep trying to win. It's unavoidable. Like that situation, if that plays out the way that it does, it's not like you're going to say, well, if we lose or if we win, we might not get in. So we're going to start Jordan Love. No, because if you win, you might get in. Depending on what happens, depending on how the other teams fall. Like if the Commanders lose a game, and then if they lose that last week, that week 18 game, you get in, but the games are happening at the same time, let's say, you don't know. You can't do anything about it. So you have to play out the string. And that would be good in its own kind of way, but you're missing out in these two other ways. And maybe the Jordan Love thing, look, Brian Gutekunst said, we don't need to see him. We don't need to see him. Whether or not that's true, look, I don't know. He's saying it, so we have to take him at his word for the moment. We want to see him. The fans want to see him. And it would be valuable for other teams to see him because then, like, let's say he balls out against the Lions or the Vikings and the Lions. I mean, the Vikings defense is terrible. The Lions defense isn't any good. So he comes out and he balls out against those teams. That's trade value there if you want it. Or it's proof of concept. Or it makes a team go, well, maybe Aaron Rodgers is available. If Jordan Love is this good, let's go make a Godfather offer rather than self-selecting out of the race. Oh, the Packers aren't going to trade Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love looks great. Maybe they are. And this all becomes different. There is value in seeing Jordan Love, even if the Packers don't need it to make a decision on his future. And then, of course, there is this tack on fan benefit that there are a lot of people that want to see him play. Is that a reason to lose games? No, of course not. Now, this might all sort itself out. The Packers might lose tonight. They might lose on Christmas. But this is the scenario that the Packers currently find themselves in. And maybe it sorts itself out. Maybe it sorts itself out tonight. Maybe it sorts itself out on Sunday. We'll see. We'll see. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. You're not playing against some group of people that have thousands of dollars of lineups in and the deck is stacked against you. It's not like that. You're playing against one thing, the PrizePicks projection. They pick a stat total. You decide if the player is going to produce more or less than that number. It's that easy. You put a couple of them together, you've got a lineup. It's easy. You can win up to 10 times your money with that lineup, and they cover the sports gamut: basketball, golf, esports, college athletics, anything you can think of. They have a PrizePicks prop for it. It's great. It's great. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can get a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Let's not go crazy, but it's easy. You use the promo code Locked On, put in $100, they'll give you $100. Put in 50, they'll give you 50. Put in $72.64. You get how it works at prizepicks.com. And today's episode of Locked On Packers, we thank you for making it your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. I bring you the biggest stories. This guy, Peter Bukowski, the biggest stories in the world of sports in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts. Locked On Sports today, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. All right, Packers Rams tonight. We are streaming live on YouTube after the game, so come hang out with us then. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live like we are doing tonight after the game, you could do that on our Locked On Packers YouTube page. To stay Locked On Packers.